This is a pre-recorded show and is intended for entertainment purposes. It is not a substitute for professional health or medical advice. Consult with your healthcare provider if you are seeking medical advice or treatment. Eavesdropping Dr. J is a place for unfiltered conversations about nutrition, health, and living with vitality. And now, she's a mom, triathlete, professor of health and psychology, a registered dietitian and nutritionist. Here's your host, Dr. Jessica Schulman.
Welcome. Today we have Dr. Scott Anderle, and Dr. Scott is an educator. He has a doctorate in education, retired principal. He's given service for decades, 30 years, 40 years. And he's a dad, an athlete. He's a U.S. Masters swimmer, teammate of mine. And as my daughter calls you, Swim Scott. So thank you so much for joining us. And I understand that you just won the first and second place medal at Rose Bowl in swimming, backstroke, and butterfly. It's incredible. And you joined the Masters swim team just a few months ago. It was April. And I was beating you in practice up until just probably a few minutes ago. And, all of this requires so much determination and discipline and good nutrition to fuel your body, right? So that's something we're always talking about is, how do we eat for performance and also health, which we'll get into. So I'm really curious if you want to share what you've been doing nutrition-wise and what does your day look like? Starting with you just told me you're doing meditation, Eastern. So what does your day look like? And then I just want to hear about your nutrition. How do you fuel your sports?
Well, first of all, let me say thank you very much, Dr. J, for letting me be on your show. I appreciate it. And I do like swimming. About 2 years ago, I had to have a knee replaced. And the doctor said you should start swimming. So I knew a little bit about it and how to swim and stuff. And so I just got back into it and I really enjoy it. But you're right. I've had to kind of focus a little bit on, my nutrition. I try to eat what I would call sensibly. I do 3 meals a day and 2 snacks, right? I have a medium-sized breakfast and then a snack around 10:30 or 10. And then I have a large lunch and then another snack and I have a small dinner. And,
so you're telling me that you have a large breakfast. Is that before swim? Is there something you're not telling us?
Well, no, I get a medium-sized breakfast. Lunch is large. But before swim practice, I get up, I make a egg white omelet, and I like to chop up a little salami and pepperoni and a little cheese in there. And when it's finished, I put avocado on the top. And I eat the same thing. I eat that every Monday, Wednesday, Friday before swim practice.
That's your edge.
I do something a little different, during the rest of the days. But, that's been working for me. That's been keeping me fueled.
Okay, good. And then you mentioned, so at night you eat a little bit lighter. And then you disclosed to me that you occasionally wake up at 2 a.m. famished.
No, not occasionally.
What are you doing?
Every night. Since I started swimming, every night I wake up at like 2 a.m. and I'm starving. And that's been something I've been struggling with because I do believe it's good for the body to fast at night, between your last meal at dinner and your next meal in the morning. But I'm so hungry. And then, I think it's also important to be conscious of what you're eating. Kind of had a bit of a plan. But when I wake up at 2 a.m., there's no plan. I go for whatever sounds or tastes good at the time. And I'm struggling a little bit with that. I'm going to have to reel that in a little bit. But that's been happening a lot. Really hungry in the middle of the night.
So it's happening regularly, but it's kind of a new development since you started swimming? Is that?
Totally new since I started swimming. I used to, for many, many years, I would never wake up at night and be hungry. But now I do. I'm really hungry in the middle of the night. And so I'm trying to I've been experimenting lately with having like kind of a snack before bed.
What does that look like?
Lately it's been a protein shake right before bed. And it's been helping a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Those calories you don't realize when you start swimming, like
Yeah.
Phelps, what is he eating? Like 10,000 or somewhere
calories
there.
a day, right?
And then you inspired me. I looked up LeBron James, and it was like somewhere around, I think it was like 5, but something about the swimming, which is excellent, right? You were talking about you had surgery and recovery, and but it does really increase your metabolism. So, and then I started thinking about something you mentioned in terms of something that actually, it affects everyone. And I know it's a little on the personal side with Scott, but it's something like 1 in 3 people, 1 in 3 is struggling with pre-diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that when we eat a lot of carbohydrates and our insulin, so what is pre-diabetes? It's when we have blood sugar in our body, blood glucose, it's a little bit higher than normal, just a little bit higher.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not high enough where you're diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. It's just high enough to wreak havoc on our appetite. It can start impacting us cardiovascular wise. So what am I talking about? Appetite. So you see where I'm going with this. If you have, and I don't think this is what's happening to you, but if you have too many carbohydrates, for example, and it's being converted to sugar, the body's pumping out insulin to try to take that sugar. I tell my students, sugar's kind of like floating around in your body, like crystals, and you don't want that because it could cause damage. So we want that sugar in the cells, in the mitochondria, and giving us energy. And when it's not there, our body starts pumping out insulin. And what does insulin do? It makes us hungry, right? So I think that you're not eating a lot of carbs at 2 a.m. is my understanding, or right before you go to bed, because that would make you sometimes feel even more hungry.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you mentioned you're having, like you said, protein shake or peanut butter apple, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So you're experimenting with some of that?
Yeah. So about 5 years ago, I was diagnosed with prediabetes, which wasn't a real surprise to me because diabetes does run in my family. But, I never really thought prior to that about the sugar that I was taking. I would see a glazed, chocolate old fashioned donut, and I'd just eat it because I really never thought about it. But then after the diagnosis, the doctor was like, you got to watch your sugar intake. And what we would like you to do is we would like you to finger stick and check your blood once a day, different times during the day, and get a feeling for how sugar affects or what you're eating affects your blood sugar levels. And it was really very interesting because there were things like bread. I didn't realize the effects that bread was having on my blood sugar levels.
So what did it do? What happened?
It would spike my blood sugar.
And you knew because
I would test my blood sugar after a meal. Like one day, for example, if my goal was to test after lunch and I had, a big turkey sandwich for lunch, on bread, I would notice my sugar levels would be higher than if I had the turkey sandwich without the bread. And it would be a significant difference. So bread is something that I really kind of have to stay away from. Same with some pastas. A lot of pasta spikes my blood sugar because I always just thought, if I stay away from sugar, I'll reduce my blood sugar. But it wasn't until I started actually pricking myself and testing it at different times of the day after different types of meals that I really start to get an understanding of how different foods were impacting, my blood sugar.
And was that something your doctor suggested, or did you?
No, the doctor suggested because I am on the higher side. My blood sugar is on the higher side. And so they said, hey, you won't have to do this forever, but so you have a better understanding of how the foods affect your system, we would like you to do this. And like I said, different times, sometimes they would be after breakfast, sometimes it would be after lunch, sometimes after dinner, sometimes midday, sometimes first thing in the morning. And then I would keep track of those numbers and what I ate. And I was able to see how different things affected my blood sugar. And that way I was able to change my diet based on how these different things affected my body. So that was a great recommendation. I don't do it as much anymore because I've got it dialed in a little better, but I do check my blood sugar at least once every 2 to 3 days after different types of meals to see what's going on.
When you said you're getting it dialed in because you're getting the instant feedback from checking, was that, I'm just curious, that the exercise, the activities you're doing, did that have any impact as well as changing your
definitely.
diet? So
Definitely.
what are you doing? Like, I know you're doing yoga and you were doing pickleball for a little bit, and like you're super surfing. So what do you feel for yourself? Like, I mean, you mentioned the activity and food makes a difference. When did you start seeing, and what do you feel like you can attribute to getting that under control or lower? What do you think it was like?
To be totally honest with you, it's just more like being conscientious that, where I am with my body, I can't eat whatever I want like I used to, right? I have to be able to say, no, I can't have that roll. No, I cannot have that Gatorade. No, I cannot have that chocolate donut because it doesn't affect me well. And that, so I think that's really the biggest change. And then of course, just trying to stay active. I mean, I think there's some other reasons for some of the things. I think, like, I do believe that I suffer from a little bit of ADD or ADHD. And I really think the exercise really helps kind of keep that all in check and keep me balanced and stuff like that.
I think this is really great that you're checking your blood sugar, because historically we only did it, if you had diabetes type 1 or type 2. And now it's being recommended if you have pre-diabetes. And then we were talking about that you can stick, and get blood, or you can do this continuous blood glucose monitoring.
Mm-hmm.
So throughout the day. And that's just really individual. People can talk to their doctor about, what works. But I'm curious, do they check your A1C?
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh. I get it checked annually.
Okay. And do you want to talk about why that's more important to check than, or not more important, but equally as glucose throughout the day?
Well, my understanding, again, this isn't my area of expertise, but my understanding is when my A1C gives an overall summary of what my blood sugar has been over time.
Yeah, no cheating. That's what it is for 3 months. And
no question, the exercise has had a huge impact on my A1C, because I can compare it to, because I had to have, I don't know if I mentioned this, but I had my knee replaced. And then, so there was a period of time when I wasn't getting any exercise. Like, I started out in a walker and then slowly moved to some other thing. And after physical therapy, they've recommended yoga, because I never really ever considered doing yoga, because I'd never really thought it was like a physical activity.
As a college football track star.
I never considered, as a physical activity, but then they said, well, you should start because your knee can't handle a lot of, of stress. And so I started doing yoga through that, and I found that it was really very helpful, not just for my body, but also for my mind. I mean, been doing it for 2 years now, and I still struggle like with the breathing, right? I have a tendency to hold my breath when I'm doing yoga, which is part of the reason you do yoga, because you to go through these poses and breathe consistently and naturally and focus on your breath. So if you're holding your breath, you're doing it wrong. And I still find myself doing that. So I still am not where I want to be, but I think
it's good. The stress management part of that is really important when we're talking about prediabetes. Again, I mean, we're talking about exercise and diet, but we're also finding that our cortisol levels, our stress level, impacts our metabolism and how we utilize sugar. So those are the 3 like big ones. If we can address them, I think that you are. But yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, and then you mentioned meditation. Well, that's how I got to meditation, because like I started doing yoga and it seemed meditative, right? A lot of introspection, a lot of thinking. And then the swimming for me is also a little bit meditative. It's the only time I feel like during the day when there's just silence, right? And then, so, looking at those 2 things, I said, well, why don't I just try to take this another step and try to actually do meditation, whether it be guided or just being quiet for a moment. Why don't I just try to start my day, rather than immediately getting, on my cell phone and checking social media or my emails or whatever. Why don't I try to start my day of getting out of bed and then quiet and trying to get myself centered and trying to get my thoughts organized before I do anything. So I think that's been really helpful too, especially someone with like self imposed or anyway, my ADHD, which I think I have. I
It
had
just
not
kicked in right there.
Self-diagnosed. That's the word I was looking for. Self-diagnosed ADHD. I think it's been really helpful for me.
And all those things that you mentioned are so important in preventing prediabetes from turning into type 2, which is really common. But something, that strikes me is, you built this whole life around wellness now because you recently retired. Yeah. So what was life? I'm just curious, like what was life like? Just like a snapshot, nutrition wise, exercise, when you're working full time and raising your kids and taking care of your parents and all those things you do.
It does take some planning. I have always spent a lot of time cooking for myself. And so lunches usually for work would consist of leftovers that I would always try to overcook whatever I was making for dinner, whether it be for myself or for the family, and take that to work because it was definitely more healthy than eating out. And, trying to just do healthy meals to the best of my ability. I think it does take, a little bit of planning, which can be difficult at times, especially when you don't have any time, and a little bit of thought. So
it sounds like planning is the big one.
Yeah.
And then
the meal prep. And meal prep takes time, right? Yeah. You're spending time that you would like to be doing something else, preparing your food for the week or for the month or whatever it may
Absolutely.
be. So it takes some thought. And
then I'm just thinking about, okay, early on, we're talking about you ran track and football in college, and you mentioned you used to be able to sort of eat differently. What did it look like then compared to now? Like what's different?
Well, I ate whatever I wanted, right?
And
I never thought about it.
Yeah.
I never put any thought about it. Just, whatever was served, going out, eating in the, commissary at the college, whatever it may be. I just ate and ate and ate, right? There's no thinking about what you're putting into your body. But then when you get diagnosed with prediabetes, things really start to change.
So this is a common story is I have a lot of athletes early on, like they're eating, we call it, clean, dirty eating, they're just eating whatever. And then the behaviors at some point, when they don't change, then we've got the prediabetes. So now you told me a story, you went to the health food store and you're trying to find foods that are, like without sugar or sugar substitutes kind of, do you want to tell us
because I do check the sugars, I don't count calories or anything like that, but I check sugar content. That's about the only thing I read on labels. And I do like protein bars, and there's so many to choose from now. And some are very high in sugar. I won't name names, but some are very high in sugar and some are quite low in sugar. And I found this one bar. I was at the nutrition store and I said, wow, I said to the person there working, I said, this looks good. It's looks tasty and it's low in sugar and it's got a lot of protein and vitamins. And she goes, well, look at the amount of sugar alcohol it has in it. And I said, sugar alcohol? What's that, right? And she's like, well, it's low in sugar, but very high in sugar alcohol. And sugar alcohol is not good for you.
She says that.
That's what she said. Okay. And I said, I don't know anything about sugar alcohol, right? So I started doing some research, and in the articles that I read, it basically says if you're pre-diabetic or diabetic, because of the way your body processes sugar alcohol, it's actually better for you than regular sugar because your body processes it more slowly and there's a slower release of, you would know what type of, things into your blood. So in theory, someone like me would want something that would be low in sugar and higher in sugar alcohol.
Or breaks down slower. So that's kind of, right, exactly. Yes. And that's what sugar alcohol does. Like our bodies see it sort of as more foreign and it takes longer to break down. Some of it doesn't break down. So we've got like sorbitol, xylitol, erythritol, all these polyols. And so I don't know exactly what you're looking at, but basically that's the idea. It just takes longer to break down. And sometimes it doesn't, and it can cause like bloating and diarrhea, and it's really fun.
I did see that
Yeah.
in the reading that I did, that there is some adverse gut effects
Yeah.
to sugar alcohol. I haven't I've taken enough of it, I would say, to see that, but even like with my blood sugar, the only way I know what it is by taking my blood sugar. Like, I don't really necessarily feel any different when my blood sugar is 130 versus when it's
Interesting.
105.
Yeah.
Like, I don't, it's like almost like with watering indoor plants, how much water do you put in it? Well, you can't really touch the soil to tell. You got to stick a water meter in it, right, to tell exactly how much water to give it. And so that's kind of the same way.
Because that glucose it's not so high that you would immediately start to feel an effect. But I'm curious, like, so were you checking your blood glucose when you were eating the polyols, the sugar alcohols, or no?
No, I haven't got there yet.
Well, theoretically, it would be a better choice.
Yes.
And then we went down this rabbit hole of erythritol. Right? And monk fruit.
Monk fruit. I didn't even know what a monk fruit was. I had to do some research on that, but it's fascinating.
What'd you learn?
The sweetness that it has in it, and it's how it's used in food, and the amount of sugar that it has in it. It's a very interesting.
It's fascinating because it's been around a long time, but we're finally starting to really concentrate it and put it in food, and it can be a really great alternative. But something that I'm learning, I mean, this is stuff I didn't learn this in school. You just have to self-educate, is that sometimes it has other sugar alcohols added into it, and we don't always know. So monk fruit juice sometimes, or monk fruit, the sweetness that we cook with, they'll add erythritol. So not on all of them, but in enough of those products that it's important for people to have that choice. Like, I want to eat the erythritol in there, or I don't. And same with stevia. So erythritol, new studies show that we need to do more studies, basically. I mean, that's the bottom line here, is it's one of those, it depends. Okay. But I know for me, like, I want to know, am I eating erythritol or not? Because there was a study, National Institutes of Health, and it said there might be some adverse effects with clotting and so forth, but more studies need to be done. But that tends to go with a lot of these other sugar substitutes. So we just have to look at the ingredient list carefully. But we were talking about that, and it kind of, I went completely down a rabbit hole because I wasn't aware of, I just assumed it was just like any other sugar alcohol. So there's a lot.
There is a lot. But for me, I like I try to keep it a little more basic. Like, I'll give you another example. I did this was a couple of months ago, but I did a workout, and then I happened to afterwards test my blood sugar, and it was really high. It was like 155. And I thought to myself, oh my God, what did I do? Right. And then I realized that on my way home from the gym, I stopped and I bought a bottle of Gatorade. And I drank the Gatorade thinking I need the electrolytes, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So I got the bottle of Gatorade out of the trash, and I looked at it, 35 grams of sugar. Right. I never thought that Gatorade would have that much sugar. I mean, that's a lot for me. I try to keep my weekly allotment under that as far as my label reading goes.
And the thing is, for you, I mean, during our swim practice, I mean, we do need to be drinking throughout, and having some electrolytes in there is a good thing. I mean, sometimes I'll take some Gatorade, I dilute it. But that's, again, it's one of those depends, because I see kids that are super competitive athletes, that are football uniforms in Florida, that's where Gatorade came from. Mm-hmm. And they really do need more concentrated, sports drinks. But it just depends. I mean, that when I see little kids that are doing an hour swim lesson now, that's probably.
But
not.
some people, based on their body type, can drink that Gatorade, and their body is fine with it. Mine, unfortunately, and again, it might just be hereditary.
But you're with those 1 out of 3 people.
It just can't take that much sugar.
I think that's true with most people. And now we're finding there's actually there's a fourth thing. We talk about exercise and stress management, and nutrition. But there's actually a fourth thing, and we're just starting to have this conversation around the gut biome and what a huge impact that has. And that sounds a little kooky, but it has a huge impact on our blood sugar and how we manage our blood sugar and prediabetes and diabetes. So that's something that we're going to need to learn about too. With AI, we can now kind of count the bacteria in there and what they're producing. But there was a new study that showed that, looking at my notes now, the characteristics, let's see, the title of the study was the characteristics of the gut microbiome in patients with prediabetes, is that for you? And type 2. And when compared with your average person, those that had type 2 diabetes and prediabetes, their gut biome was out of whack. It was different with certain bacteria that produce, I don't know, I'm going to botch this. It's, I think, butyrate. But the bottom line is that we have a fourth variable now we need to start thinking about. And if we populate our gut with the good stuff, the good bacteria, or the substrates, the things that the good bacteria eat, we're going to do better in managing our blood sugar. So where am I going with this? You mentioned that you do better with fruit, like a whole fruit.
Yes. Yeah.
Well,
it doesn't seem to impact my blood. Even though there is sugar in fruit, it doesn't seem to impact me as much as a chocolate donut.
And that's true for most people. And one of the theories, maybe it's the fiber, right? But the fiber also impacts the gut biome. Like an orange, that pith is a substrate. It's the food that fuels the probiotics in our gut. So you're getting the fiber that slows down the glucose absorption, and you're also feeding your good bacteria what they need. So there's so much, it's so complex, but then we go back to, let's simplify, let's keep it simple. It's just eating whole foods, trying to stay away from the processed stuff. Right?
And I think also for me, just being conscious of what you're eating, because, throughout my life, I've reached for that chocolate donut. I mean, it's like an automatic response. And I've had to really kind of
be mindful.
It's been difficult, but you have to be conscious of the fact that, that is not going to be good. The person next to me might be able to have it, but I'm not able to. It's just not good for me. It's almost like a little bit like having an allergy to shellfish, right? You may love shrimp, but you can't eat it because it's going to make you sick.
Right. And it just depends. It depends on the person, but we also know that generally speaking, I mean, I'm railing on that 1 out of 3 people has prediabetes. So that means that everything you're saying, I mean, we can all relate. Either there's 3 of us in the room right now, and one of us is, we're all going to be impacted, whether it's ourselves or we know somebody, social support and helping them to eat well. I have one last thing.
Yeah.
You had a beef with my book.
I don't know if I would say I had a beef with your book, but there is a lot of focus on the ORT, the object relation therapy.
Okay, what are we talking about? So I have this little book. It's actually my master's thesis a million years ago. It's called Relational Nutrition. But I talk about there how our early childhood experiences, specifically with bottle feeding or nursing or the primary caregiver, that can impact our emotional eating later on in life.
And I guess my beef was there's a lot of focus on the mother as the object, the outstretched arms as the object, the breast as the object. And, just from my experience in education, we talk a lot about ACEs, adverse childhood experiences.
Sure.
And so I think it was like, well, the, ORT can be broadened beyond just skin to skin contact.
Right. So ORT meaning how we've bonded with a primary caregiver.
Mm-hmm.
That's all we mean by ORT is our attachment to a caregiver, that can impact the way we eat. I mean, if we had a traumatic experience as a child and a bottle was put in our mouth and we're thrown in a crib, and that can impact how we see food. Like we need food to comfort ourselves. So you're saying like adverse childhood experiences
I
can
was
also impact. And what I wanted to tell you is because you had a
that's
beef
exactly
with
it.
me, I'm just kidding, but that I looked into it and you're absolutely right. And so I wanted to kind of end with this idea that it's not just, okay, eating, exercise, our biome, the four things, but our social experiences, that those traumatic events, adverse childhood events, adverse adult events, right?
Childhood conditioning.
Childhood conditioning, adult conditioning,
All right.
right? All of that has such an impact. And I just love, I think it was Oprah, or I can't remember. I'm going to attach the person that came up with this. And I just love this idea is post-traumatic wisdom. And that's where I feel that, or maybe they're not the post-traumatic, but the wisdom through your sports and being a principal to thousands of kids and a parent. And
and one of the things because walking a campus and watching kids, you always see, you have a group that eat from a lunchbox and a group that eat from a vending machine. And this crosses all socioeconomic classes, right? You've got your vending machine eaters and you've got your lunchbox eaters. And I've always thought to myself, I would love to do a study on their nutritional habits 10, 15, 20 years from now, based on what they have done through middle school or through high school when it comes to feeding themselves.
Absolutely. And we need to do that and connect it to glucose monitoring, prediabetes. And
Right.
Right?
Right, because processed foods got a lot of sugar.
It's a problem. It's, and the gut biome and the whole thing. So Scott, thank you so much. We're going to continue this conversation.
Right.
And I want to ask you, is there anything, resources, wisdom, anything, and we're going to conclude, tell us what's the one thing everyone needs to know?
Well, I think when it comes to nutrition, you just can't not think about it, right? There's got to be some thought process about what you're putting in your body. Even when it comes to going to a restaurant, you may not be able to order your favorite meal, right? You've got to say, hey, what would be good for me to eat right now today based on what I've already eaten today and what I have going on tomorrow. So, that I think just there needs to be a lot more conscious effort when it comes to feeding ourselves.
And sharing. So let's go get some cheesecake. We'll just have a little bite.
We'll share it. I can do that.
Thank you, Dr. Scott, for joining us today, and everyone for being here today. We talked a lot about sugar, and next time, please join us. We're going to be addressing, does milk make mucus, the gut biome, should I be intermittent fasting, all these questions that come up, and we're going to have conversations around them. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.